Hello and welcome to this interview with me, Beau, and I am joined by Talk TV host, ex-MEP and current Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Dr. David Ball. Dr. Ball, how are you, sir?
I'm very well indeed. Thank you very much indeed. And thank you very much for inviting me on.
Yeah, no, it's our pleasure, of course. I'd like to just jump straight in because I know your time is very precious. Just start talking about Reform UK and policy and strategy, all that sort of thing. But first of all, just sort of the view, the sort of the broadest view of the party, the sort of vision for a better Britain or a less broken Tory Britain.
Well, I think the whole thing comes under our slogan, which is "Let's make Britain great." This country is Great Britain, and quite frankly, right now it isn't. This all goes back a long way, as you can imagine. So obviously, I got deeply involved in the Brexit vote. The powers that be decided we would have a referendum, and people voted on whether we should stay in or leave the European Union. People voted, as you know, to leave the European Union, and yet the powers that be at Westminster decided that people were too stupid to know what they were doing, and therefore they did everything they could to stop that happening. So I was incensed by that, and look, the point is whether you should have had that referendum or not is a slightly moot point. But we had it, and people voted to leave, so therefore we had to leave. So I then decided to put my money where my mouth was, and then met Nigel Farage, as you know, ended up in the European Parliament, and I was one of those MEPs that I think we had the most extraordinary success, and against all the odds, we then left the European Union. Now, Brexit was really only the beginning of a much longer journey. And the whole point about Brexit was it was taking back control of our money, laws, and borders. And quite frankly, the current government has made an absolute hash of the whole thing. And in many ways, once we'd left the European Union, we decided that we would trust the Conservative government. Now, that was a mistake, wasn't it? Boris Johnson, 80 strong majority. We had a lot of turmoil over standing down our candidates, which we then did. And the Brexit Party sort of went into cold storage. And we did that, and we let them get on with it because we believed that we had to give them an opportunity to show that we were going to take back control of our money, laws, and borders. But they didn't. And so Richard Tice and I took the party off the ice bucket, or out of the ice bucket. And we felt at that time that really Brexit was the beginning of a much longer journey. The whole idea is to have autonomy. This is a great country. And what we now have to do is to use that and move forward. And quite frankly, the whole system needs radical reform. And that is how the name changed and where we're going. So we believe passionately we can make this country great. And we can do that, but we need no more tinkering around the edges, no more of this political posturing. Let's get on with it, reform things that don't work, and build a Britain that everyone can really invest in, I think.
Absolutely. I wonder if I can just get down to real brass tacks straight away. I think one of the biggest issues of our age, of our time, is immigration, mass immigration. I hate to just go straight to the heart of the matter, but that is what a lot of people they see the very nature of their towns and cities changed extremely quickly in terms of demographic. Let's be honest, that's what it is. And I mean, how, because the Reform UK policy is to have net zero migration, isn't it? That is the policy. I think Richard and yourself should be screaming that from the rafters at all possible times, because it's not just the small boats. I would like to say this. It's not just the small boats, it's also the extremely large numbers of quote unquote safe and legal migration also, I think, needs to be brought down, because if I could put it like this, I feel like if you abandon the concept of borders, then you're doing a great disservice to the concept of citizenship, really. You're even damaging the rule of law itself. And that's a terrible path to go down, is it not? Am I overstating things?
No, it is. I mean, let's go back, take back control. The fact is, well, let's start with the small boat, shall we? 44,000 came in last year. It's predicted to go up to 88,000 this year. Quite frankly, we have not got a grip on this. We have 140,000 people waiting in the backlog to be processed. The government's response currently is just let's open lots of centres. Let's stop spending about £8 million a day on hotels. So it's the official figure is about £6 million But on top of that, there are additional costs. So it's probably 8-9 million. And so hence why we've now got RAF Scampton and Wethersfield and the barge in Portland. Now, the thing is, these are all sort of closing the stable door after the horse has bolted. So the government knows this is a huge problem. The electorate also knows the government hasn't got anywhere near this. Now, to be fair to them, the illegal migration bill has gone through with lots of kicking and screaming by various parties, including the Labour Party, by the way. Make no mistake that they really don't want to stop migration, legal or otherwise. But it just in terms of where we are, that's the illegal migrants. But then let's look at migration. Why have we let 1 million people into this country? So when you look at the net migration, and obviously people do leave, it's about 606,000. Now, when you look again at the jobs in this country, 5.2 million not employed, not in training, should be employed. And this morning I had a massive argument with an economist who actually used to advise Gordon Brown. And he was saying, well, Brexit's to blame because we can't have all of this labour from the European Union. No, the point is that actually by bringing in cheap labour, you undercut British wages. What we have to do is to train our own people, to give them a sense of responsibility, ownership, get them into jobs, and then also service the British economy with British people.
Yeah, no, good point. I mean, all great points. And we talk about millions of people. This is an unprecedented thing in all of history. This isn't normal. This isn't okay. Because there's the economy side of things, but I think there's a much broader point. The idea that down the road, and I don't think this is too crazy, you'll be looking at the balkanisation of Britain. In Leicester last summer, just quickly, Dr. Paul, in Leicester last summer, there was sort of mass rioting for days on end between Indian Hindus and Pakistani Muslims in Leicester, in the heart of England. Now, extrapolate that down the road, you'll end up with enclaves, giant enclaves of foreign people that bring their values and their hatreds to our country, and they play out in our country. Is that not a complete madness?
Of course it is. But you see, it all goes back a very long way. But let me take a hometown near me, or Ipswich, for example. Block booking of hotels. Ipswich is unrecognisable. I have no idea what they are doing. So essentially, you're swamping essentially a market town full of people from different countries, as you rightly say. Look, I don't have a problem with using immigration to help this economy. But if you come here, you have a duty to learn English. You have a duty to assimilate and to get yourself involved in the community. One of the other things, when I was a junior doctor about 3,000 years ago in Ealing, in West London, we created ghettos. We allowed people to come and live amongst their own communities, not speak English. When I was a junior doctor, none of them spoke English, so I had to have a translator. What a waste of resources. So we, the state, pandered to it by having all our signs in multiple languages. No other country would do that. So what we need to do is have it in English, say, look, you're very welcome if you contribute to society, but you learn English and you also adopt British values. You do not keep to the values of your country. If you want to keep with those, you go back to your own country.
Quite right. And I know this is a bit uncomfortable of a conversation, a little bit difficult, but I think it has to be had because, again, you look at, again, the term balkanisation, but you will end up with... it will end up in sort of quite a bad place in the examples of history of when large migrations of people with foreign values come in. So the idea that you come from the subcontinent of India somewhere, or you come from the deserts of Mesopotamia or the jungles of sub-Saharan Africa, and you give someone a claret British passport, and they don't immediately have the values of British people. It doesn't work like that. But that's what the globalists, the multiculturalists, insist is the case.
Well,
and it just isn't.
They don't believe in national sovereignty, do they? That's the issue. They believe in freedom of no borders, of freedom of movement, etc., etc. And you see, the thing about that, and actually there are a number of other things that need to be sort of disentangled here. One of those is foreign students. We're totally reliant on foreign students to feed this obsession with 50% of people going to university, which was Tony Blair's ridiculous idea. But also, the institutions are now charging overseas students so much money that bankrolls them. Now, I'd argue if you're relying on that, then actually we've got too many universities. But equally, we now know of one particular university that has no British people in it, not one, because they're relying on all that foreign money. Now, the other issue is once you come here, how many of them are bringing family members? Well, answer, lots of them. They also are meant to complete their degree and leave, or they have a period of stay, which they're allowed to find a job, and then they're meant to leave. They don't. They disappear into the black market. So all of this has to be stopped. And what you need actually is a government willing to do it. I think there's another point to this as well. It's not actually just about the political will. It's also about the civil service. And you've got to remember the civil service actually doesn't believe in Brexit. It doesn't want any borders. It wants freedom of movement. It wants cheap labour, and it doesn't care what the price of that is.
To watch the full video, please become a premium member at lotuseaters.com.